You walk into the garden center and see rows of brightly colored plastic bottles. They promise bigger tomatoes, greener leaves, and overnight miracles for your backyard. I did the exact same thing for years. You spend hard-earned money on liquid fertilizers, hoping to fix the weak growth in your garden beds. You mix the chemicals, feed the plants, and for a short time the garden looks fine. But underneath, the soil is growing tired. It becomes a sterile sponge, completely dependent on your next trip to the store for more synthetic food. The real mistake is not that you are failing to care for your plants. The mistake is that you are throwing the true solution right into the kitchen trash. Every single day, you likely toss away banana peels, vegetable ends, and fruit scraps, assuming they have no immediate value. You have been taught to ignore the resources right in front of you, which traps you in an endless cycle of spending and dependence. It does not have to be this way. There is a quiet, proven system that breaks this dependence on commercial agriculture. It takes about $1 worth of a common pantry staple and a few minutes of your time to turn that overlooked kitchen waste into something far more powerful than anything sold in a plastic jug. I am not talking about a massive compost pile that requires constant turning and months of waiting. I am talking about a simple, reliable method to pull the deep nutrition right out of your kitchen scraps. It is a system that creates a rich, microbial liquid, gently bringing the earth back to life without ever reaching for your wallet. When your tomato leaves turn yellow or your squash vines suddenly wilt, it is incredibly easy to blame yourself. You stand there in the backyard wondering if you watered too much or if you simply lack a green thumb. But it is not your fault. You were simply taught the wrong model. For decades, the commercial fertilizer industry has spent fortunes convincing us that growing food is a complicated chemistry experiment. They trained us to look at our plants like machines on an assembly line. They told us that if we just pour in the exact right ratio of synthetic nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium from their plastic bottles, the machine will run perfectly. That is a very profitable, very expensive half-truth. When we rely entirely on those synthetic blue liquids and chemical granules, we are only force-feeding the plant for a few fleeting days. We are completely ignoring the living, breathing soil beneath it. Those commercial inputs are essentially fast food for your garden. They give a quick burst of green growth, but over time, the heavy salts in those fertilizers slowly degrade the soil structure. The earthworms quietly leave. The beneficial microbes, which are the true engines of a healthy garden, simply starve to death. Eventually, your rich earth becomes hard and lifeless. It turns into little more than dead dirt that merely holds the roots upright while you are forced to pour more expensive liquid over them just to keep the plants alive. This is exactly how the commercial model is designed to work. A sterile, dependent soil guarantees you will be back at the garden center next spring to buy another round of bottles. You have been caught in a cycle designed for their bottom line, not for your family's long-term independence. Once you understand this, a heavy weight lifts off your shoulders. You stop blaming yourself for a struggling garden. You begin to see that real, enduring gardening is never about feeding the plant directly. It is about feeding the soil biology and letting that thriving biology feed the plant naturally. This quiet shift in thinking changes everything you do in the backyard. There is a very different way to grow food for your family. I use a simple, quiet system that mimics exactly how nature builds deep soil, but it works on a much faster timeline. Instead of managing a massive, hot compost pile that you have to turn with a heavy pitchfork, we are going to use a cold liquid extraction method. You already have the primary ingredients sitting right on your kitchen counter. Every time you slice a tomato, chop the ends off a zucchini, or peel a banana for breakfast, you are holding raw, unrefined plant nutrition. The commercial industry prefers that you throw those scraps away and buy their synthetic versions in a bottle. This system captures all of those valuable minerals before they ever reach the trash can. The engine driving this entire method is incredibly cheap. It requires about $1 worth of ordinary dark brown sugar or unsulfured molasses. That is the only money you will ever need to spend to make this work. We are not using this sugar to feed the garden directly. We are using it to pull the moisture and the locked up nutrients out of the plant scraps and to wake up the dormant, beneficial biology that already exists on those vegetable skins. When you combine the raw kitchen waste with the dark sugar in a simple container, A proven, powerful process begins. The sugar naturally pulls the cellular water right out of the fruit and vegetable pieces through a basic scientific action called osmosis. As that rich liquid slowly pools at the bottom of your jar, it creates a highly concentrated, biologically active serum. It is a reliable, time-tested method used quietly by independent farmers all over the world to maintain strong, year-round yields without ever relying on chemical inputs. It costs almost nothing, but it creates a living fertilizer that synthetic products simply cannot replicate. You are building a closed, self-reliant loop right in your own backyard. The setup for this system is incredibly simple. You do not need to buy specialized composting bins or expensive aerators from the garden center to make this work. Any clean glass jar or small plastic bucket with a tight lid will do the job perfectly. I usually start with whatever container I have recently emptied from the kitchen. The process begins with a very basic, reliable ratio of 1 part kitchen scraps to 1 part dark brown sugar by weight. If you have 1 pound of chopped banana peels, apple cores, and cabbage leaves, you simply use 1 pound of sugar. You want to chop those vegetable and fruit scraps into smaller pieces before you begin. Smaller pieces create more surface area, which allows the sugar to draw out the moisture and nutrients much faster. Once your scraps are prepared, you just build layers inside your container. You put down a layer of chopped kitchen waste, and then you cover it completely with a layer of brown sugar. You repeat this gentle process, alternating scraps and sugar, until the container is almost full. The final layer on top should always be a thick blanket of sugar. This top layer acts as a natural seal, protecting the raw plant material from the air and preventing any unwanted mold from forming. Once the jar is packed, you press down firmly on the mixture. You want to squeeze out the hidden air pockets, creating a dense, tight environment where the natural extraction can safely begin. Then you simply put the lid on and place the jar in a quiet, dark cupboard or a cool corner of your garage. You are not trying a quick, overnight hack that promises impossible results by tomorrow morning. You are building a proven, steady habit that will serve your family for years. You are stepping away from the store-bought bottles and simply setting up a natural environment, allowing the long-term system to do the heavy lifting for your backyard. You must give the system time. The commercial bottles sold at the store promise instant results, but real soil health is built on a steady, natural rhythm. Nature does not rush. For the next 2 to 3 weeks, you simply leave the jar alone in a cool, dark place. You are stepping back and allowing the biological extraction to happen on its own schedule. After the first few days, you will notice a quiet change. A dark, rich liquid will begin to pool at the bottom of the container. This is the cellular moisture being actively drawn out of your kitchen scraps by the brown sugar. The solid pieces of fruit and vegetable waste will slowly shrink as they surrender their stored minerals and vitamins. You might even see tiny bubbles forming near the surface. That is exactly what you want to see. It tells you that the beneficial biology is waking up and going to work, breaking down the raw materials into a digestible form. You just need to trust the process. Once a week, you can slightly loosen the lid to release any mild pressure that builds up during the natural fermentation. When you do this, take a moment to notice the smell. It will not smell like a rotting compost pile. It should smell sweet, earthy, and slightly fermented, very much like a mild apple cider. That sweet scent is your proof that the healthy, beneficial bacteria are dominating the jar. The fertilizer companies want you to believe that extracting plant nutrition requires a massive chemical laboratory. But as you watch that simple container on your shelf, you realize the truth. You are witnessing a hidden, proven process that works quietly in the background. You are reclaiming your independence from the store, observing a natural cycle that will feed your backyard for years to come. After those 3 weeks pass, your extraction is ready to use in the backyard. You simply strain the solid plant pieces from the dark liquid. Those leftover solids can go straight into a regular compost bin or get buried in an empty bed, leaving you with a jar of pure, concentrated plant nutrition. This is your proven, low-cost fertilizer. It is created entirely without chemicals and without a single trip to the store. Because this liquid is so highly concentrated, you must dilute it before applying it to your soil. You only need about 1 tablespoon of this rich serum mixed into a full gallon of clean, unchlorinated water. You are not pouring thick syrup directly onto your plants. You are creating a gentle, biologically active tea that the earth can easily absorb. When you water your garden with this diluted mixture, you are delivering raw minerals and beneficial microbes directly to the root zone where they are needed most. I apply this to my family garden beds about once a week during the active growing season. It is a quiet, steady system. You will not see an unnatural, overnight explosion of weak green leaves like you often do with synthetic nitrogen. Instead, you will begin to notice lasting structural changes over the next few weeks. The plant stems will grow visibly thicker and become far more resilient to the heat and common pests. The leaves will take on a deeper, heavier color. More importantly, you will see a profound change in the soil itself. As you consistently feed the biology hidden beneath the surface, the earthworms will naturally return to your beds in large numbers. They are drawn to the rich, living environment you have quietly restored. As they move through the earth, they will aerate the soil and leave behind their own valuable castings, multiplying the benefits of your $1 investment. You are building a permanent, self-sustaining cycle that works year-round. This is how you grow strong, healthy food while maintaining your independence from the commercial industry. When you look out at your garden mid-season and see the soil thriving without a single store-bought bottle, something fundamental changes. You realize you are no longer just growing a few tomato plants. You are building real family stability. True food security does not come from a plastic jug on a retail shelf. It comes from knowing exactly how to turn the waste from your own kitchen into the exact nutrition your backyard needs. The financial benefits of this low-cost approach are immediate and undeniable. Instead of spending $50 every spring on synthetic fertilizers that simply wash away in the first heavy rain, you are spending $1 on dark sugar. That money stays in your pocket where it belongs. More importantly, this is a proven system that works year-round. Even in the dead of winter, when the garden beds are resting and the ground is frozen, your kitchen is still producing valuable scraps. You can quietly continue this extraction process indoors on a simple pantry shelf. By the time spring arrives, you have jars of rich, biological liquid ready to wake up the dormant soil. You become completely insulated from supply chain issues or sudden price hikes at the garden center. You have created a closed, self-reliant loop. The harvest feeds your family, the leftover scraps feed the soil, and that healthy soil grows more food. There is a profound peace of mind in this hidden cycle. You know exactly what is going into the earth, and you know you are growing strong plants entirely without chemicals. Your independence is no longer just a nice idea. It is a daily working reality right outside your back door. You do not need to change your entire garden overnight. There is no rush to overhaul everything you have built. I simply suggest you start with one small batch right on your kitchen counter. The next time you chop vegetables for dinner, save a handful of scraps and mix them with a little dark sugar in a single jar. Try this method on just one garden bed this season, or even on a single tomato plant that has been struggling. Then just step back and watch. Observe how the soil holds moisture differently after a few weeks. Notice the deep color of the leaves and the quiet return of the earthworms beneath the mulch. You do not have to take my word for it. The earth will show you the truth of this system. When you see that single plant thriving without a single drop of store-bought chemical fertilizer, you will understand the profound power of this forgotten knowledge. You will know that you have the quiet ability to build rich soil and grow strong, healthy food with your own hands. That is true independence. It simply starts with a choice to stop throwing away what the earth is patiently asking for.